Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's episode is about Tláloc on the Quetzalcoatl pyramid in Teotihuacan.
Let's see it. This is a whole complex.
In this video I want to warn you that you may change your understanding of history in a way that will probably make your history teacher choke on his coffee. In my previous video about Quetzalcoatl, I proved why this figure on the Quetzalcoatl temple should be seen as a lion, and how this figure can be compared to many other gods from religions around the world. Watch the video and tell me if you don't agree too. I have written a scientific article that I link in the description below. The figure next to Quetzalcoatl on the temple is called Tláloc, and I certainly also have an opinion about him which I now will share with you. It was the Aztecs who found Teotihuacan at least 500 years after it had been abandoned by its last inhabitants. Therefore, there was no one to tell them what the place, the pyramids, the figures or any of the things they found were called or meant. The Aztecs attributed significance to everything they found in Teotihuacan in relation to their own religion, inclusive the two figures of the Quetzalcoatl pyramid. It is far from certain that the original people of this place had the same exact religion and ideologies. That is why we cannot only rely on the ideas of the Aztecs. We need to look at the place with fresh eyes. We have to realize that the knowledge of the figures on the Quetzalcoatl pyramid in Teotihuacan very likely is wrong. The Aztecs decided that the figure next to Quetzalcoatl was their water and storm god Tláloc. These interpretations were passed on from the Aztecs to the Spanish when they arrived in the 16th century, and it does not appear that there have been any questioning of whether these interpretations were actually correct since. I disagree that the figure was original Tláloc, but for the sake of simplicity and understanding, I will continue to call it Tláloc in this video, as I have also done in my article that is linked in the description below. The figure of Quetzalcoatl is considered the oldest Quetzalcoatl figure found in Mesoamerica, and the figure next to it of Tláloc is also considered the oldest figure found of what archaeologists consider to be Tláloc. Therefore, it must be assumed that the Aztecs, as well as other cultures with this god in Mesoamerica, based the appearance of the Tláloc figures they afterwards made on the looks of the sculptures of the Quetzalcoatl pyramid in Teotihuacan. Tláloc was one of the most powerful gods, and you can see that it's Tláloc, that he has really big, round, open eyes. We have teeth, very big teeth, and a mustache. And as I see it is that the Aztecs' original misinterpretation has become how the Mesoamerican people have depicted him in their later artwork of the god Tláloc. So I believe that we are dealing with a more than 800-year-old misunderstanding. Let me help you solving it. Better late than never, right? In the following I will prove why Tláloc is not a strange robot man, but a rattlesnake with a ring pattern on his forehead and a Teotihuacan hat on his head. So hold on to your own hats and glasses, now it's time to get started. The outer rings that is thought to be earrings are actually the eyes. They have the eye circle with pupil and shape as the eye area similar to the one of Quetzalcoatl. The eyes are on the side as the snakes have them, and from the front you see two teeth as a snake with open mouth. Tláloc clearly has the scales of a snake depicted by the sculpture's artist in small square blocks. In the upper round circles that has always been confused for being eyes, there is quadratic scales. That is why the round circles must be natural patterns in the forehead of a snake and not eyes. This proves that the rings in the forehead are not eyes, but some patterns in the forehead that different snakes have. I give you some examples now. Here is a Mexican lancehead rattlesnake that has ring patterns in the forehead. And here's the Mexican black-tailed rattlesnake that has also ring patterns in the forehead. Here's the Croctalus tlaloci, also from Mexico, that has ring patterns in the forehead. This snake is even called after Tláloc. On the left side of the figure there is an interesting pattern. It is the tail of a rattlesnake. Let me know in the comments below if you also can see it. The front teeth fangs has visual dental gums as a rattlesnake. From the side, Tláloc has one row of teeth that can be compared with the rattlesnakes. He is not figured with a lower jaw, which makes him different from Quetzalcoatl that has a lion's teeth, both in his upper and lower jaws. So my guess is that Tláloc is either a specific rattlesnake or any kind of rattlesnake. What is on the head of the figure is similar with other figures from Teotihuacan that is wearing special headdresses. There are many examples of headdresses in Teotihuacan. The Tláloc figure looks like he's wearing one. Here's how the Aztecs saw Tláloc on the Teotihuacan pyramid, which we now know was not how he was meant to be originally seen. The Aztecs saw the round forehead rings as eyes and the real eyes as earrings. If we should believe the Aztecs, then why does Tláloc clearly resemble a snake and Quetzalcoatl's face a lion's? That this Tláloc on the Quetzalcoatl pyramid is the traditional rain god of the later pre-Columbian era is uncertain after this discovery, because he seems to be a rattlesnake god of some variety. Tláloc has not a strange face with large round eyes in the forehead and big round earrings. He is a snake with a rounded pattern in the scales of the forehead and eyes on the sides like snakes have. He has two big fangs as a snake and some kind of honorable Teotihuacan headdress. Since we cannot be certain of Tláloc's identity and whether he was at all the Tláloc figure that the Aztecs attributed to him, then is again open the question about who he was supposed to be. I believe that it was the Aztecs that put shells and conchs in the decoration because they thought it was Tláloc, the water god. Likely the Aztecs misunderstood the long snake body on the pyramid to be the depicted a flowering source of water, probably a river or lake, with its scales being waves on the water surface. So now we are left with two figures, a lion and a snake. Seems very biblical to me. And I recommend you to see my previous video about Quetzalcoatl, where I show you how many gods from different religions all over the world, so you can see that we here have a clear pattern. And now a little follow up on the Quetzalcoatl video, so we can understand who he was even better. Quetzalcoatl, on the other hand, I actually believe is the real Quetzalcoatl. The name Quetzalcoatl means feathered serpent in Nahuatl language, which is the language that the Aztecs and other cultures around were speaking. The name feathered serpent is of course incorrect, since we now have proven that Quetzalcoatl was a lion. But the name also has another meaning, which was wisest of men. And this name really fits to him. I tell you why. There is some evidence that ancient Mesoamerican descriptions of him may have something to do with the end of the Olmec culture around 500 before Christ. And Quetzalcoatl is associated with the destruction of the Cholula pyramid. The Olmec people are surrounded by great mystery and clearly stand out from all later Mesoamerican people. They were probably the ones who had better technology than the later Stone Age peoples who later inhabited the land that is now Mexico. I think it is very likely that these Olmec people are the founders of Teotihuacan. However, I do not think that they made the figures of Tláloc and Quetzalcoatl on the Quetzalcoatl pyramid. These could very well have been made by the population in Teotihuacan who moved in just after the Olmec people. I think it makes good sense that if the lion Quetzalcoatl has something to do with the end of the Olmecs, that the people after would raise a lion's head of him as a conqueror on the temple that they built. In the folk tales, it is described that the Quinametsin giants were the first inhabitants of the area, then the Olmecs, and thirdly the Toltecs. Therefore, it may be the Toltecs or other with similar Stone Age tools who had created the figures, who made the heads of Tláloc and Quetzalcoatl in Teotihuacan on the buildings founded by the Olmecs. Here's a quote from this book written about Mesoamerican folk tales from what we know today as Central Mexico. Those that inhabited this new world in the Third Age were the Olmecas and Xicalancas, and according to their histories, they came to Potanchan in ships or boats from the east. From there they went out to settle the land and the banks of the river of Atoyac, which flows between the city of today's city Puebla and Cholula. They found some of the giants who had escaped from the disaster and destruction of the Second Age. And here's a quote more about the Olmecs. And when they were at the height of their prosperity, a man arrived in this land whom some called Quetzalcoatl and other Humac. And he, for his great virtue, was considered just holy and good. He taught them by word and deed the way of virtue and avoid vice and sin, giving them laws and good doctrine. To restrain them from their pleasure and immodesty, he established the practice of fasting. He was the first to worship and erect the cross, which they call Teotihuacan and other Tunacuatl. Here's a new quote from the same book. After preaching the aforementioned things in most of the cities of the Olmecas and Xicalancas, and especially in Cholula, where he spent most of his time, and seeing that his teaching bore such little fruit, he returned to the place from which he had come, which was the east, disappearing off the coast of Quetzalcoatl. And he bade farewell to these people. He told them that the future in a year that would be called Quetzalcoatl, he would return and then his teaching would be received and his children would be lord and rule the land, and that they and their descendants would suffer many calamities and persecutions and many other prophecies that later very clearly were fulfilled. A few days after he had gone, the aforementioned destruction and devastation of the Third Age of the world took place. At that time, the striking tower of the city of Cholula, which was like a second tower of Babel that these people had built with nearly the same design, was destroyed, knocked down by the wind. Later, those who escaped the devastation of the Third Age built a temple to Quetzalcoatl on the top of its ruins. According to the histories, Quetzalcoatl was a well-built man of stern countenance, white and bearded, and he wore a long tunic. Okay folks, these were my thoughts on Tláloc and a little more understanding of who Quetzalcoatl was. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you see what I see, that Tláloc in Teotihuacan is a rattlesnake with a hat and not a weird robot man with ring eyes? It is just an amazing place, Teotihuacan. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Like and subscribe to my channel to never miss out on anything, and see you guys very soon for